Are you guys getting bored of the same old nature deck over and over again? Well, I was, so I decided to swap it up this weekend ranked. Went with Control Nature, got 19 out of 25, had a ton of fun. I'm going to show you guys an insane game that I played using the deck. First, I'm going to break down the deck list, and I'm going to break down a free-to-play budget version of the deck list as well. So let's dive in. So let's break down this deck list first. This one's 1.65 ETH. The budget version, which we're going to look at in a second, is $46 as of the time of recording. So we'll take a look at that in just one sec. So what's the purpose of this deck, first of all, is what we need to look at. And essentially, we're trying to just use lots of spells to control the board and not let our opponents get anything sticking on the board. So we have Canopy Barrage, Lightning Strike, Frenzied Ritual, Enchanted Vines, The Hunt. All of these do tons of damage. So the important spells here that you might need to get from Trial of the Gods are things like Frenzied Ritual, which deals 12 damage to a random enemy creature and to a friendly creature. So typically we don't want any creatures on board because this would hurt them. It also gives us a random nature card, which is very cool. A lot of these cards you're going to see are going to give us random cards. We're going to be able to generate a ton of value this way. Enchanted Vines deal 4 damage to 4 random creatures. That again includes your own creatures. So not having creatures on board is a benefit in this deck. And again, add a random nature card to your hand. So you literally could play an Enchanted Vines and get an Enchanted Vines from it. You could also get a Dense Fog, and, you know, these things happen. So then we also have the typical standard spells like Canopy Barrage does 4, Lightning Strike does 8 plus some burn. The Hunt does 8 split amongst everything. And then we have the standard Demogorgon here at 7 to try and stall until we get to 8. We have a Gorilla Gardener. This guy's pretty cool. He has backline Blitz Overkill. After this creature destroys an enemy creature, summon a 1/1 Vibrant Fruit. This guy's very interesting. I don't know if he's needed necessarily. I eventually took out both Selena and the Gorilla Gardener and put in 2 Ashen Drakes. Had a ton of fun with the Ashen Drakes. Haven't played them in a real long time, but they're pretty fun. They do 4 damage to a creature and 4 split amongst other characters, enemy characters. So they can go face, they can kill other creatures. They're pretty cool. At 7, they're 6/5 dragon as well. So that helps you have some more firepower for the end game, which I felt was needed. Also here we have Dionysus is our top end. This creature adds 7 random nature cards to your hand and sets their cost to 1. So you can conceivably get things like another Dionysus from Dionysus, and it only costs 1. It also deals 4 damage to each enemy character. Ironically, Polyhymnia is so busted, and it's a neutral card, which makes no sense, that almost every other 9-drop is completely invalidated by the existence of Polyhymnia. So you don't need to run Dionysus. Every time I played it, I kind of felt like, I wish I was just playing Polyhymnia right now. But don't get me wrong, this card is extremely fun and pretty powerful. It might be one of the only ones that you can run instead of Polyhymnia because Poly, again, is so busted. So hopefully Polyhymnia gets a little bit of a rework at some point because it completely invalidates all 9 drops, and that's just ridiculous. So other things we have here, we have Pyramid Warden. I don't think you need Pyramid Wardens in this deck, quite frankly. If anything, sometimes it's a downside. You basically use it to kill off an enemy creature, but then it just comes back, and now you have to deal with it again in some other way. However, you do have the Hunt and Enchanted Vines to kill them the second time around. So Pyramid Warden, not terrible. It's not needed. Oftentimes I drew them late, and then they're just dead cards. You can never play them. Underbrush Boar is a freaking phenomenal card. If you don't have one, I can't recommend it more. It is expensive for a rare card because it's one of the best cards in the game. It has, at the end of the turn, Underbrush Boar is summoned, attack a random enemy creature. That means it can hit ordered creatures, it can hit hidden creatures, it can hit anything at all on your opponent's board. It's also only 2 mana, which means you can drop this, it kills your opponent's 2/3 or something along those lines, and you just get so much value from this. It almost always will 2 for 1. Sometimes it can take out something that's hidden and just sacrifice itself, but it's worth it if it can take out a Shade Walker that's a 6/3 and it's hidden or something. So Underbrush Boar is a phenomenal card that is, I would say, almost certainly needed in this deck, along with these other important spells like Enchanted Vines and Frenzied Ritual. Avatar of Nature is just another good generator of free walking plants. Get some heals for your god. Heals are definitely needed. We have Compost Charm ×2. Oftentimes I never even needed to use this for the heal, but if you have 8 cards in your void, add a random nature card to your hand. So again, we see the add random nature card. Sometimes I would just play this once I had 8 cards in my void. If I knew that my opponent wasn't really playing fast, if I wasn't going to need to heal, you can just play it, add a free card, move on with your life. And if you need it for the heals, playing 2 of these is 20 health. That basically means you have 50 health to start the game. We also have Veil Warden Minotaurs, which heal for 4, so that's an extra 8 health. We also have the Avatar, which makes the walking plants at a minimum gives you 1. That's another 4 health. We have the Demogorgons, which heal. So we have a lot of ways to heal in this deck, and basically just stall until we can play Dionysus and completely wreck our opponent's lives. Let's take a real quick look at this free-to-play version that I came up with. I tried to swap in cards that are only core and welcome set. However, again, you can't run this without Enchanted Vines and Frenzied Ritual. Those are really important. We have Polyhymnia at the top end. I think that's perfectly fine. Could have done that in the other version. Helion Elite. I tried Void Drake. You could probably play Cyclops Defenders at 7 instead. Void Drake's not very powerful, but if you can try and set your opponents up to where that this can actually be effective, it might be worth running. Maybe you run 2 Cyclops Defenders and 1 Void Drake or something along those lines. We've also got low-hanging fruits in this version to do a little bit of extra spell damage. We've got Revivification, which does 7 heal, and if it puts your god at full health, add a random nature card. In this version, I went with Blazing Talisman. This is an insane card. If your opponent doesn't have relic removal, they're going to be in big trouble. It gives every single enemy creature, every time it attacks, burn +1. And when those creatures die from burn, it gives all of your creatures regen +1. So I put in some big creatures like Overgrown Rhino, Veil Warden Minotaur. These getting some regen would be very nice. Also, they can survive an Enchanted Vines if necessary, though again, we typically don't want our own creatures on board. In this version, I put in Staff of Roots instead of the epic Faithlane Blades because these are cheaper, and also they do give you a walking plant, which might help with some healing that we're lacking because we don't have Avatar of Nature and Demogorgons and things like that. I forgot to mention we're also playing Selena's Mark, which deals 1 damage to a random enemy creature and heals your god for 1. So again, more healing. So when it comes to the mulligan here, things that we're looking for, you always want to get your Pyramid Wardens out early. As I said before, they can be dead cards in the end game, so you don't want these late game. Get them out as quick as possible. Underbrush Boar, always mulligan for this. If you can get an Underbrush Boar, you're in great shape. Faithlane Blade is a phenomenal tool to just eat as much damage as possible. You don't really care. Clear everything off the board. Use Compost Charms to heal yourself. But you don't want to mulligan for Compost Charm. This will come naturally at some point. Canopy Barrage is a great thing to mulligan for. If you know you're playing against someone who's playing a zombie deck, for instance, Chiron is very important and can never hurt to have a Vanguard Axewoman. So let's dive in and take a look at a game that I played during the weekend ranked. Okay, so we're going with Selena's Mark here. We're playing against a Control Magic deck, and our hand is okay here. We don't really need Frenzied Ritual early. Faithlane Blade is great. We don't need Lightning Strike early. Don't need Hunt early either. We're going first, but we're just going to pass. We want to save that pip. And he instantly passes back. So that's a telltale sign that we're playing against Control Magic and not against some type of Tempo Magic that would have spammed a ton of things onto the board immediately. Oh, here we got the Pyramid Warden, and we just slam that down. And I decided to take a hit to the face, gain 3 favor. Always good to farm some favor. Perhaps we could save that hit, but didn't seem like he was playing any creatures, so I figured let's go ahead and hit face. So then he drops a big old Aether, And now we got to figure out how to deal with it. We could Canopy Barrage and God Power. However, I don't mind. I don't want him to get anything back. So I don't want to kill this before my Pyramid Warden dies. So it's important to figure out how can I kill my Pyramid Warden at the same time that his creature dies. And so if our Pyramid Warden eats 4 damage here, that's perfectly fine. Now our Pyramid Warden has to die before or at the same time as his Plantar Sage. And then I just keep gaining favor, hitting the face. And so if he trades, I'm happy. If he doesn't trade and we trade into him, we're happy. If he throws a spell, that's fine. Putting out a big frontliner here was kind of a bit of a surprise, and now I had to figure out how to deal with the big frontliner. But again, we're going to be able to trade off our Pyramid Warden, and he's not going to get anything back. So that's the easy first step here, is we can just trade our Pyramid Warden into the 4/5 if we want. And then we can also eat damage as well with our relics. We can throw Canopy Barrage here, and no matter which one it hits, it doesn't really matter. We're just going to swing with our relic. And then we either can Vanguard or just swing with the relic one more time and then God Power. And in control decks, one of the most important things to do, the rule of thumb, is do as little as humanly possible whenever you can. If you can just get away with doing nothing, save all of your resources and pass. The most important thing is conserving your resources so that way when your opponent drops a massive threat, you have the cards to be able to deal with that threat. Like, I could have used a Frenzied Ritual to kill his 3/4, but then I don't have a Frenzied Ritual to kill a Polyhymnia. So Frenzied Ritual plus Lightning Strike is the recipe for killing a Polyhymnia. And we're going to try and save those cards as long as humanly possible. Now we're going to be at 6 mana. We've got an Underbrush Boar. I don't want to use my big spells here. It would have been nice if we could get an Enchanted Vines. We take a shot with the God Power, see if we can kill that 3/1. We miss, but we could still clear board if we sack our boar here. We're just going to keep the board clear. If he drops one of those big old 4/8s with armor, we'd be able to kill it with a Lightning Strike or Frenzied Ritual. Plays Miraculous Familiar, which is a very nasty card. He immediately plays a spell, and now we have no earthly idea what he's holding in his hand. The RNG here is just nuts in this game because I'm generating random cards, he's generating random cards. It's very difficult to know what's going on. So I could hunt here, but again, I really don't want to use any of my massive resources. So probably just Demogorgon and take out the Miraculous Familiar is the best line here. Consider taking the Lambasting Wand. I just don't think we need it. So he leaves the demo alive for a turn because he didn't have an answer. And now we have a choice of how can we deal with his 4/4. We can sack our demo if we want. We can get the Avatar of Nature out. We don't want him to get a wide board here if he has those big old 4/8s with armor. We can't throw random spells if he has a wide board. That's one thing that can absolutely wreck this deck, is if your opponent can get a wide board with lots of health. Typically, that means nature, although Magic does have some some big 4/8s with armor. If you're playing Cyclops Defenders, Helion Elites, if you can get wide with big health, the Hunt doesn't do anything. Enchanted Vines doesn't do anything. But once again, he just generated more random cards. He does have Blessed, he gains some favor. So he can get the... So Fury was one of the random spells he generated and kills off my avatar, which felt bad. But he can grab the Valka's Discovery, which maybe is a good idea since I still have another demo. Now we want to deal with this Miraculous Familiar, but again, I'm trying to save these big spells for Polyhymnia. And we have some cheap stuff in the Sanctum, so I consider buying the Ranger plus Valka's Discovery plus God Power, but I didn't really want to put 2 brand new cards into the Sanctum. And then in retrospect, I thought, I can't leave this thing alive. He already has 1 random thing. So this was an ordering mistake right here. I should have played the Valkas first and then shot with the Ranger. Instead, I did 1 damage to my Ranger for literally no reason. Let him Mage Bolt it to death. But such it was my indecision here. So he's drawing cards here. We're pretty happy with what we've got. So Compost Charm, and we have 30 health, and he's done no indication that he plans on doing anything. We could just play Compost Charm if we wanted to, and gain a free card. And so that is exactly what I do. And we get a Revivification, which ironically is no more helpful in this situation. So again, we generate a free random card. And now the Rebel Quartermaster is interesting. It gives +1/+1 to any creature we summon. So he kind of has to deal with that. My thought here is playing it this turn. He maybe has to use a Star Shard Bolt. And we have a Gorilla Gardener, which is really going to be big if he doesn't kill the Rebel Quartermaster. And so my hope is just that he has to waste a Star Shard Bolt or a Tracking Bolt. Defend the Ramparts. Anything to make him waste some spells. And here we just drop this guy with no hesitation. Gorilla Gardener, going to do some overkill damage. Gets us a little bit wide here, so he can't just... Yeah, we had a lot of health, so he couldn't just Inferno everything. He does have a Ratify, though, but that's a good thing that he ratifies. Here, he then gives me a 2/2 rat, which is probably a mistake. I mean, he can't really leave the Apple Boy. If he leaves Apple Boy and kills the rat, then I can play something else, and then that gets buffed. So that's probably fine that he makes the rat a 2/2. And here, I really don't want to have cards in my hand anymore because we're getting ready to play Dionysus. And Dionysus gives you 7 random 1-cost cards. So my dilemma now is, do we play the Pyramid Warden and risk him getting back some good creatures? Or do we get 1 less card from Dionysus? And I feel like we're just not doing enough as is, so I'm really torn, but we just pass. No Pyramid Warden here. This is the downside of late game Pyramid Wardens. And this is tough. We can Enchanted Vines and swing with our Relic. We can even God Power here, so we don't even have to swing with the Relic. Then I get a Rat of Perplexion. It's torn between God Powering and Rat of Perplexion here. I think the upside of saving cards, typically in control decks, is the answer is you always want a God Power here. But because we have Dionysus, I am trying to get cards out of my hand. I want I want many, many fewer cards than we've got right now, and so I decided to go with the rat. But if this was much earlier in the game and we didn't have Dionysus, if we were playing Polyhymnia instead, every time you would want to God Power there and save that rat. And so now he drops a big creature, and we need to answer this. Luckily, we have the answer with the Frenzied Ritual. We've been saving it all game. And this generates me a random card as well. We get Archmonian Onslaught. For some reason, my random generation cards this weekend included a lot of Archmonian Onslaughts and Dense Fogs. Cursed? Maybe. I really want to get this Pyramid Warden out of my hand. I now have Archmonian Onslaught stuck in my hand. Next turn, we're going to be at 9. And we know that he picked up some Relic Removal, and so I just swing, since he's going to play the Relic Removal and get rid of my Relic anyway. Might as well do 1 damage instead of none. And here we see the 4/8 with armor. And the Wiccan Trapper, which is why we swung with our Relic. And that means we can take some shots. If we want a God Power and then Lightning Strike, we can. We can just hunt as well. Grab the Form of Power. And then I look and he has no favor. And so we don't buy anything yet. We're trying to get rid of cards in our hand, not add more. So definitely wise to not have bought the Form of Power there. Shaped Blast is going to kill off the Pyramid Warden with the God Power here. And we get to hold our breath and pray. Doesn't get back that 4/8 with armor. He gets back a different armored wall. I really want to get rid of that Archmonian Onslaught and make way for some 1-mana nature cards. Dionysus does kill off that wall, and my opponent would be down to 11 health, so it's pretty tempting to do this. My other thought is he has Polyhymnia. I want to get this on board before he plays Polyhymnia. Because in order to kill Poly, you need to pop Ward, pop Protected, and then do a Lightning Strike and a Frenzied Ritual. And so here we did it perfect. We did lose a Demogorgon in the process, but I just triple check my math here. We can God Power to get rid of the ward, swing the Dionysus to pop Protected, and then we throw a Frenzy Ritual and a Lightning Strike. And now, unfortunately, Frenzy Ritual does kill my own Dionysus, but worth it to kill off this Polyhymnia here. It is extremely rare to see Polyhymnia just actually killed, not transformed, not anything. It was actually killed. I think that might be the first Polyhymnia I've ever killed. And it was because we waited all game and prepped for it. Now here I consider using the Form of Power to finish this thing off. But it's going to burn up next turn. And our rule of do as little as possible is still in effect. Maybe we'll need that Form of Power later. We still have this obnoxious Archmonian Onslaught clogging up my hand. I want to get rid of it so bad, but I'll look at Sothek instead. We still can expect an Inferno here, so I don't want to play all of my big creatures. I could go all in with Sothek and Veil Warden, but those are my only creatures at this point. This will refresh some mana every time I play a nature card. I want to play the Veil Warden, but we have to be concerned about Inferno. We did get a Dense Fog from Dionysus, so our Dionysus was a pretty low roll, to be honest, besides Sothek, which in and of itself is a low roll. And then here he whips out the Healing Insight, and I am very sad. That is the RNG that you can get with Miraculous Familiar. Did not expect to see a 4/10 with armor. So now suddenly I already dealt with the 4/8 with armor twice, and now I have to deal with a 4/9 with armor on limited resources here. So we get Blessed. We add a random nature card. We get a Moonbeam. My opponent is pretty low on health. So I consider doing some damage to him. But gaining 2 favor for every card in hand, and I have so many cards, just seemed like the better option. Bizarrely, we were unable to buy the Rune of Healing here. So if we're Frenzied, the Moonbeam procs, and so we can get Frenzied by using Form of Power first. Then we Moonbeam, which refreshes some mana. Now we can drop a creature. And again, we are at 30, so it's possible I play Compost Charm here. Or just get a free card and see what we get. And instead, I just decide to pass and see what happens. Does remove my Talisman. So here I see the line of buffing my creature, grabbing the Rune of Healing, which was bugged last turn, but this turn it is not grayed out. And we can heal our 6/1. Now we hope the Primal Guidance hits the 2/2, but it does not. And now suddenly we are sad about that, but we can Dense Fog and make our opponent confused. So having used the Gorilla Gardener, having used Dionysus, we burned a demo. We already used a demo. I don't really have much more top end in this deck. We are pretty well out, but this card is going to generate me a random card, so we can cross our fingers and hope it is a good one. And it's an Archmonian Onslaught. Feels bad, man. So here we need to generate some type of threats. Grab the biggest creature in the Sanctum. And so now we have Archmonian Onslaught, and it's actually important to not play it. Now we actually want to save the Archmonian Onslaught for when we're in Fatigue. We're both very low on cards. So if you play Archmonian Onslaught now, you're actually just harming yourself. You could use that to save 5 health once you're in Fatigue. So Archmonian Onslaught, although it is completely worthless until we spend 5 more cards, once we have no cards left in our deck, Fatigue works that you take as much damage as you have in unspent mana. So that 5 mana being spent, if we have nothing better to do, equates to saving 5 health. Once again, we have another Veil Warden, which can add us a random card. We do have a Relic, which can hit 4 damage, and then we only need a few more damage here. Also, that gives us 12 favor over time, which is going to be nice. There's our Enchanted Vines, which also gives us a random card. Ooh, Charging Oryx. That's a nasty RNG for you right there. So, I decided I'm just going to eat 7 damage. It's fine. We have Compost Charm. And it's really only eating 6 damage because then I heal with my God Power. And then we throw down that Charging Oryx. It's going to hit face. We hit face. He's down to 2. He's going to have a lot to deal with here. Does ratify it and then can God Power it. But we still have a relic that can do those last 2 damage. Kind of a bizarre choice there from Blessed. Doesn't gain any favor. Just swaps costs in the Sanctum, which doesn't really do anything. Now we're 1 turn away from lethal. And I think we can play Compost Charm here, but again, with Fatigue coming up, I'd rather be able to heal for that full 10. And I do decide to trade here on the off chance that he gets a frontliner out. I want to be able to kill it with Enchanted Vines plus Canopy Barrage. And in fact, he does have that other frontliner. But we now have lethal because we cleared off his other creature. We can just Enchanted Vines, Canopy Barrage, top deck the Hunt anyway. And that gives us barely lethal. Oof. That was a sweaty game. GG's to my opponent. Hope you guys found that enjoyable and helpful. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're almost at 10K followers. Let's go. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.